Frankenstein, Dracula, werewolves, phantoms, zombies, gorgons, mad scientists, abominable snowmen. These are the monsters that they have created. Peter Cushing, Christopher Lee, Ingrid Pitt, Veronica Carson, Oliver Reed, Madeline Smith, Barbara Shelley, Michael Gow, Hazel Court, Bartine Beswick. These are the people that faced the horrors. Jimmy Sangster, Terrence Fisher, Michael Carreras, Peter Sasty, John Elder, Evan Jones, Anthony Hines. These are the people who created the horrors behind Hammer Studios. Welcome to Conversations in Hammer Studio Horrors, your gateway into classic horror cinema, brought to you by Broken Lighthouse Pictures and Something Wicked Entertainment. Hello everyone and welcome to Conversations in Hammer Studio Horrors. I'm your host Kevin L. Powers. I'm also the owner and operator of Something Wicked Entertainment and Events, and welcome to our program today. If you are familiar with how we do our program, what it is I take an individual film and me and my special guest will kind of critique, analyze, and have a general conversation about the film. Sometimes it's a really good, thought-provoking filmmaker critique and analysis, and other times we're just talking about the movie like we just watched it. That's why our show is a little different than a lot of the other shows out there, is you don't have to be a filmmaker or a film crazy nutball to enjoy our show. We just want you to enjoy it, and hopefully you'll go out there and appreciate the real movie when you see it yourself. So with that, I'd like to bring on my special guest for today. His name is Dave Watkins, and he has been with our program for a very long time with our regular show, Conversations in Horror. So we are very happy to have him for this show. Thank you, Dave, for showing up today.
Yeah, thanks for having me back on, man.
Excellent.
Looking forward to talking about this one.
And the film that he's referencing is The Curse of the Mummy's Tomb from 1964. This one's a little different from the previous Mummy film, which you've already talked about. So if you listening to the show, if you haven't heard the previous episode that we did on the Mummy, please go check that out. This is not.
We've also covered the Universal Studios Mummy.
Yep.
With Boris Karloff. This is the Hammer Studios one.
Yeah, we have also done that on our regular program, Conversations in Horror. So if you want to talk about the original Mummy with Boris Karloff, go check that one out. But this one here is not a sequel to the original Mummy that Hammer produced. It's kind of a standalone little film here, and we might as well just delve right into it. By the way, everyone who's listening, we are not doing a spoiler-free podcast, so if you have never seen this movie in the last 60 years that it's been out, you're just going to have to listen to it with all the spoilers, or just don't listen to it until after you've seen the film.
Yeah, we'll be spoiling this one. But it's not going to matter. It won't matter.
All right. So, Dave, you know me. I always like to ask everyone who comes on the show what your very first impressions or when you saw this movie. But, you know, the thing about me and Dave, neither one of us were alive when this movie came out. So this will be very interesting for him to tell us that.
So, yeah, I guess the first time I saw this one, I think, I do, you know, when I was younger, there were a lot of Mummy movies on TV. I saw parts of it. This may have been one of them at the time, but I don't know for sure. But the time I really was able to watch this for the first time and kind of understand the whole thing was probably about 5 or 6 years ago when I bought this Hammer Blu-ray set, and it's in that set. Also has Revenge of Frankenstein in the set, but that was the first time watching it. I thought it was okay, and there's two things about this movie. There's a lot of exposition at the top half of it. And there's a lot of mystery within the script that's not really very surprising, anything that happens, but there's a lot of the script maybe delves in mystery a lot to get around production stuff, maybe that, or maybe it's trying to really be mysterious. But as far as when the Mummy finally does show up, it's pretty good when the Mummy shows up. It's very similar to what the Mummy does. Is kind of similar to the Mummy with Christopher Lee, and the Mummy's not as good as Christopher Lee's Mummy, but it still looks pretty good. It looks better than the Universal Studio sequel Mummies, because the Boris Karloff one, he's only the mummy briefly at the very top of the film, and then most of the rest of the film he's kind of looks decrepit and really cool makeup there. But this is probably the third best so far in line of the Mummies movies as far as the way that the mummy does look.
And you know there are a lot of mummy movies out there, so talking about the different looks of the mummies is actually very beneficial. I do agree with you on that. Especially considering that everyone knows that I'm a huge Boris Karloff fan and I love the Universal Studios mummy, but I also really love the Christopher Lee one and the original Hammer Studio one as well. Not as dynamic, of course, as Boris Karloff, but Christopher Lee has that scene in there when he's not in the mummy makeup where he just steals everything. In this film, we don't really have something like that though. This is a much different animal than the other films that we've talked about.
Right. And this one is there's a lot going on at the beginning of this that I've got some notes on, but
Oh,
it's yeah, but I mean, but really though, there's two parts of this movie. There's the part without the mummy in it, and then there's the part with the mummy. But the first part of the story, like the original Hammer Mummy movie, I think the original Universal Studios Mummy movie takes place in Egypt. But unlike those, we don't get to see them go into it and discover like a tomb or anything awesome like that. We kind of denied the Tomb Raider part of the film.
yeah.
And that's one of the things that get around the budget. But it is always nice to start in Egypt. In some of the Universal Studio Mummies movies don't start in Egypt, but it's cool to start there. And it's a very hilarious scene. The very first scene is hilarious to me. And I think the one thing that's interesting about this film, and we've been talking about the Hammer horror films really from the first one, Curse of Frankenstein, and most of them are directed by Terrence Fisher. This one's directed by, I'm probably going to butcher his name, but Michael Carreras. Carreras, yeah, Carreras. But he was a producer on all the other ones. He's a producer on Dracula, Frankenstein, The Mummy, and he wrote, directed, and produced this one.
Yeah.
And it's a lot different feel than any of the previous ones before this. There's something light about his direction. It's not as controlled as Terrence Fisher's, but he was a documentary filmmaker before this. So it has almost in some parts of this film does have a documentary type of feel to it that's unique to this particular film, especially earlier on. But it also reminds me of it also gets a little more exploited. It's like exploitative. I think that's a word. But there's a lot more exploitation in this film than the previous Hammer films, even though it may be still kind of may feel tame. But anyway, that hilarious scene at the beginning, you got this old guy he's an Egyptologist, and he's tied up. There's a bunch of guys around him who were nomads or to this area in the Sahara Desert. They got him tied up, and they got a knife, and then they stab him in the chest with it. And this all and then they take it and they cut off his hand, and then they laugh, and so that's kind of how it starts off. And it's a pretty graphic scene too.
It's weird because I thought the same way too. I had forgotten that scene because, like you, I had originally seen this movie when I bought the box set of the Hammer films, and I hadn't bothered to see it again until more recently when I got the Shroud of the Mummy tomb, or what the third one is. So I rewatched it then, and I forgot that scene is graphic, but it's also funny because of the way the nomads react to the
Yeah,
whole.
yeah, yeah. I think it kind of looks cool though. That desert area looks cool, and some of it is not set. I mean, some of it is actually like on location footage. There's actually B-roll mixed into it, and but it's hilarious though. It's very much unlike the previous films in this. And there's actually I don't know if the comedy's intentional here, but
Oh yes.
there's a camp value to this film, unlike any of the previous films we've talked about on purpose, or maybe it's not on purpose. It makes it even funnier.
So, see, for
So,
me, I feel like it's on purpose. I
yeah.
absolutely love the Alexander King character.
Oh
He
yeah,
reminds
yeah,
me of Carl Denham in King Kong. He is
yeah.
this carnival barker who has found something that he can exploit and he can make a money out of, and that's his whole point throughout the entire movie. And so it's really fun to watch that actor, Fred Clark. Fred Clark play this character because that's exactly how I felt. I'm like, dude, this is Carl Denham. Like, I'm always saddened when he does die because he's one of the first people the Mummy goes after. But
Yeah.
up until that point, his character brings all the comedy to this film, except for that opening sequence, obviously with the nomads.
Well, I've got other. I think that the comedy for me is there's some unintentional stuff that may or may not be intentional, but that I agree with that. That character's intentionally funny, and that character I really like the character too. And he brings a lot of energy to the
A lot of
scenes,
energy.
especially when he really every scene he's in is great. He's just
And
it's just but he's like almost like a character that you're not supposed to like, but it's like the probably
yes,
the standout performance of the movie.
and it's a huge contrast to the other characters in this film because you have the one, the main professor, the professor who after
John Bray. Is that what
John,
you're talking about?
no, not
John.
John Bray, his partner,
Oh, the Giles character, Sir Giles.
Giles,
Yeah,
Sir Giles, who is like the hardcore old school archaeologist who once King decides that he's not going to give it back to the people like they agreed upon, and he's instead going to take the entire display of the tomb on the roads.
yeah.
Exact. He gets disillusioned and he quits, and then he becomes a drunk for most of the rest of the film, and so it's a tragic thing for him. But then John, his young protege, takes charge of everything, and
Which
we
really, he actually seems a little old to me. He's like 20 years. He seems 20 years older than his love interest, but yeah,
does seem older.
yeah.
No,
I think he really is too because I was looking at the years on it. It's about 19 years difference
oh
than the
wow.
actress that plays Annette.
No,
But
I agree with you there. I,
but
I, I was like, absolutely, there is a huge age difference between Annette and John, and I'm just gonna go with the film because the film takes the creates a love triangle eventually.
yeah. Well, I don't have a problem with the age difference. It's not, it's fine but it's more of the way that is even his character. Okay, here's how the character's set up. So after that scene with the hands cut off, it cuts to the inside of it goes to basically the camp, the field camp, where they're inside of like a building, but they're outside. There's tents everywhere, and him and Annette are in there. They're drinking, and she's like, ask him, she's like, "Are you trying to get me drunk?" And then he's like, "No, not until we get back to London, maybe." Because clearly when she says that, and the way that she delivers that line is she's not getting drunk. She's talking about getting something going. And he's just like, "No, we're not doing none of that until we get back to London."
Yeah, it's kind of odd because you got to get the impression that they're already together. At first, you kind of think that they might already be together, but they really aren't. So
Well, yeah, I think well, they are. I thought they are together. They are together at first.
yeah,
I thought so, but I thought she was like his fiance or something like that.
I don't know. I don't remember them ever saying that, but you get the impression that maybe that they were like they are engaged. But then why is she kind of making the getting taking into the seduction of the other character?
Well, yeah, I think it comes from that. I mean that's really that. This guy is he's caught up in his archaeology stuff, even though she does have experience with it too.
She's
But
supposed to be
she's
another one.
yeah,
An
but he
archaeologist just like him.
yeah, but he's like just too like hyper focused on it, and she's just not attracted to him. I mean, she is attracted to him, but she actually makes that move. She makes the move, and he like deflects her, where her attention. He's not giving her the attention that she wants, and then the other guy gives it to her.
Yeah, but
Um,
depending on if she was engaged to him, she's a bit flighty.
yeah, oh, yeah, yeah, and it's the characters what she does through the movie, and a lot of these movies are like that. The Hammer films that this character may or may not be somewhat possessed by supernatural things within the other character, but I do like her performance. I like her energy and her smiles, and I do like the way that what she brings to it, even though I don't necessarily like how they treat her character, but I do like the way that she does it. Very unique actress. But so it's her father is the guy that got the hand cut off, and so Giles shows back up at the camp right after they're doing the
Yeah.
drinking thing, and they bring her father in on this gurney, and one of the guys. I guess they're hired like Egyptian guys. He drops it, and this is what's hilarious because he drops the body on the floor. The whole sheet comes off, and and then he's like dead. And then John walks over to the guy and just like he like, smacks him across the face. He's like, "You did that on purpose." So that it's like that sort of thing is what where I'm just like, "Holy crap, that was hilarious."
I wonder if when the movie originally came out, they thought that was hilarious. It's actually interesting you say that because we nowadays watching films like these, which are like 60 years almost removed, some of this stuff we find hilarious because you wouldn't do that if you made a modern day film of the exact same subject matter.
It's just the way that it's done. I mean, I get it that it's kind of like it was maybe done for shock purposes, so you
Yeah.
see the dead guy's face. But it's like the way that it's cut together and the way that it happens in the scene, it just comes off so goofy. It's almost like a Abbott and Costello moment, you know? It's like, oops, I dropped the dead body on the floor, you know?
Yeah, but
And-
what's not funny is when she goes into her little, I guess her tent and finds her father's severed hand, as a warning to her and the rest of them.
yeah, yeah, right. Yeah, that's right after that. She screams, and they all run out there like, "What's going on?" And there it is. But when Giles comes in, which is this is I know this is something we've never talked about on these Hammer films, but in every one of the Hammer films, they have a the canner of brandy that people are just like chilling and drinking. They're in there doing that, and the first thing Giles comes in, he goes for the brandy and he starts drinking it. And I'm like, wow, he's really going for it right away. It's that of course it plays in later, but he is like a big drunk. But it's the thing. At the first time, at first I was like, the couple are in there drinking. And then it's like, but can you imagine though being out in this location in the
Not so.
freaking middle of the desert, and it's like, okay, that looks pretty good. It's nighttime. It's time to go to sleep. Better hit that brandy pretty hard, you know?
You know what? You are absolutely right. We've seen that in most of these Hammer films. It's like just that's their shtick that they use to pass time in between conversations. Is they
Yeah,
all drink, and that could be just something that's just normal for when the movie was made, or it could be something that's normal for that time period. Since we weren't born or around the
yeah, yeah.
1960s, we have no idea.
Yeah, I like it though, man. I'm like, if I was like walked in there and they were offering me some brandy, I'd take it, you know. But I do like it's just funny the way that they showcase it so much, and in every they do that in other films too, like films that aren't Hammer, like say the old Dark House, even like in the 30s, they were doing that with gin, but it's. I guess I don't know how much we need to talk about it, but it is definitely like something that happens, and every one of them I've watched so far, they break it out. Is that?
It's because we are watching them so close to each other that we're noticing stuff like this.
Yeah.
Oh my god! I probably would have never noticed had I watched these like a normal person. But we've been
Yeah.
watching so many of these in the last month that you're absolutely right because Peter Cushing does that a lot,
Yeah.
as both Van Helsing and as Doctor Frankenstein. It's so
Yeah. I wonder how many times they use the same prop, like the same brandy decanter, because I think it's the same one, you know? It's-
oh my god! I wouldn't be surprised. Oh my god, that's so hilarious.
so
Um,
yeah, well, another character who's in there at the beginning is a character played by George Pastel he played Muhammad Bey in the first one. Here he plays a different Bey, Hashmi
okay.
Bey.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
was
but
like, is he the same person?
yeah, well, he's not. He's played a different character, but he actually it really I like the way he does it in this one. It's actually like he's still got the same kind of ideologies, but he's not a villain like he was in the other one, and he's more nuanced. But he's kind of like a red herring, but it kind of subverts expectations because you expect him to be the villain again, and he's actually just part of the team.
Hmm. No, I agree. I love I love that character in this film. Unfortunately I was not paying attention to the actor that was playing him, or I wish I had, so I wouldn't have noticed he was in both movies. But I
He
love
even wears the same fez, I think, at one point.
the difference between you and me is I'm watching a whole lot more Hammer
Yeah.
films. But I really like his character in this one, not only because of he's like the character who's warning all the other characters that they're doing something wrong and no one's ever listening to him. And I I almost wish I had watched this years earlier, like years earlier when I was growing up. I would have been able to be a little bit more. I would have never thought that this was a red herring, but watching it only a few years ago for the first time, I always knew it was a red herring because that's
Yeah,
the most obvious thing to freaking do in these type of movies. So I like the fact that he is really nuanced and he shows some of his religious convictions, even to the point where when he comes face to face with the mummy towards the end of the movie, he more or less sacrifices himself. Um,
yeah,
I was like, dude, you don't have to sacrifice. I mean, in theory, you
yeah.
wouldn't have to because all the people you've been trying to warn didn't listen to you.
Well, I'm going to read you a line that he says in the movie,
Oh, go
and
ahead.
this actually kind of ties into what you just said, and it is also hilarious because it has the title of the movie in the line. So it's in the earlier scene where they're still inside of that inside of the base camp, and they decide they need to leave because of all this. They're cutting off the guy's hand and all that. And John's like, okay, I guess now he's kind of sarcastic. And I guess now we're gonna have to fold our tents up and run away. And then Bay says, you cannot just run away from the curse of the mummy's tomb. We are all doomed to die for this act of desecration.
It's like,
But he doesn't say it like that. He says it like kind of like that. But
I like the way you said it.
yeah. But like if you think about it, it's hilarious that he says the name of the title in that. Anytime that happens, it's funny. But then he says that we're doomed to die for this act of desecration, and he's part of the team. And unlike in the first one, the other Bay character came up to him and he tells them not to go in there, and if they do it, they're screwed. But this one, he's participated. He knows he's participated, and for some reason he did do it, and he knows he's going to die, and everyone else is going to die too. And he's already kind of I think when you're talking about when he sacrifices himself, he's already kind of committed to that act. Like he knows in order to stop it, everybody who desecrated the tomb has to die.
Yeah, it's something he repeats multiple times through the film. It's one of those things where, like I said, he just keeps telling them and they don't listen to him. But it's not so much that is he's also thinking that this is a good excavation because it's going to go back to his people until King tells him that we're not going to sell it back to you. We're just going
Yeah.
to take it and put it on the road, and that's what prompts him to go to the opening ceremonies. That's in England, I believe.
It's in London.
Yeah, okay. In London, and he goes there to kind of talk them back into selling it back to his people. And that's an interesting look on this because he's not trying to get revenge on anybody. He just wants them to do what they said they were going to do.
Right, yeah, and he doesn't have the violent instincts
No.
of the guy from the first one, which you think that he's going to because he's the same actor, he's playing a similar character, but he ends up being completely different, and I think that's really awesome the way they did it different, and they didn't just do the same thing twice.
No, I
Um,
agree with that.
yeah,
I kind of liked the change of who eventually becomes the villain. Although there's a huge explanation on how he
yeah,
became, yeah, why he's the
yeah.
main villain and all that type of stuff. I like the subtlety in it because what they on their way to London on the ship, they have an altercation with. I'm assuming what is that guy's name, anyways?
The,
Uh,
well,
uh,
with the Paul, wait, no, it's the Adam Beecham. Is
Adam.
that you're talking about? Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Adam, the Adam character. So the Adam character, just from the looks that he gives people when we first see him on the ship, that he's got an ulterior motive or plan, and we
Yeah,
know that he's hired that one guy to sneak
yeah.
into their quarters, John's and the next quarters to get stuff out of there that he needs.
This is hilarious. This ship scene. There's so many scenes in this film that I'm just
Lighting,
dying.
light,
But it's so here's how it's like. It looks like a set. Obviously, they're on a boat. It looks like a set, I guess the set includes like kind of just the outside of the boat and then a room. But it's still fine. I mean, I'm not saying that's a bad thing. But then this thug comes in there, knocks out Giles, and they first Giles comes walking up. I think John and Annette are out there talking. Giles comes walking, staggering up, drunk. He's already quit
yeah.
quit and John's taking his place and he mumbles some stuff and then he walks off to his room and then they hear a crash and he's like Giles, he runs in there and then the thug hits him, and then when it gets really hilarious is the thug runs out on the ship, and then he takes out a big knife and he tries to attack Annette with it, and at that point, that's when the character Adam Beecham like is first appears,
Yeah.
and I assume that he hired this guy, but then the guy that he hired, that we don't know at this point that he hired him, he beats him up and he throws him overboard of the ship.
Yeah,
It's
but
like a
after
that's
he
like a
throws,
Dumb and Dumber move, you know?
yeah, he throws him over the ship, but then he gives everyone that look that makes you,
Yeah,
this is a con.
yeah,
But you don't know
yeah,
that how it all plays into the story. You
yeah.
just know that there's something wrong with this dude.
But then he's like all suave and he starts really flirting with Annette and he's kind of nice to John at first, but he's kind of playing the whole thing. He's really playing both of them ultimately. But you can tell right away, like this character who just appears out of nowhere saves her and is there's something up with him. You knew there was something up with him from right then, and to me, it's hilarious that he just like threw the guy that he hired overboard. He's like, yeah, and he gets top billing for this film. The actor's name's Terrence Morgan.
Yep.
Not it's if you look at that guy and John Bray, this film was a when it was released, it was a double bill with what was the other movie that came out?
Was it?
Yeah, it was a double bill with some. No, that was right. The Gorgon, which we covered recently.
Yeah.
That Gorgon has Christopher Lee and Peter Cushing in it. But can you imagine this film with them in it instead of these guys? I mean, these guys do a good job, but it's kind of like they kind of seem like they're written for Christopher Lee and Peter Cushing in a way. You
The,
know,
the Giles, the Giles and John character.
well, I'm thinking Adam Beecham and maybe John. You know, if you imagine John played by Peter Cushing and Adam Beecham played by Christopher Lee. You know, that's but
Oh
I mean,
yeah, that would be, yeah. I can see Adam Beecham being played by Christopher Lee. Yeah, I definitely see that.
but I
Uh,
mean, these guys do a good job, but they're definitely not those guys, and they couldn't shoot. They're shooting the Gorgon at the same time they're shooting this. You know,
yeah, well, yeah, yeah, yeah. And the thing is that these actors, as good as they are, they don't have the same charisma as those two do. And there's a reason why we have the Alexander King character then.
yeah. But back to we hadn't talked about his entrance, which is friggin' fantastic. So the next day after all that, the hand shows up in the tent, and they decided to leave. They packed everything up, and we see the sarcophagus for the first time. We don't see the mummy yet, but we do see the sarcophagus, and it's a pretty cool sarcophagus. It's probably the same one from the mummy at the end, I think, more than likely. But it still looks good. And that's when they're like, oh, he's Alexander King's here, and they're like, oh, our benefactor's like he's here in Egypt. You know, they don't expect him to show up, and he comes in with a monkey and he's got like a box of Turkish delight
Yes. Oh
candy,
yeah.
you know, and it's like he shows up with stuff, and he's just such a big personality, and then he's a friggin' monkey, and he starts handing it to people like he doesn't want to hang on to it. He starts handing it to other people in the scene like a live monkey, and then he gives Giles some of the Turkish delight. And he hasn't named it yet. And Giles tastes a piece of it. He's like, oh, that's quite delightful. And he's like, oh my goodness, that's the name of it, Turkish delight, because it came from Turkey or whatever.
It came from Turkey. Yeah.
He
Here,
named.
taste this. Taste this. It came from Turkey. And
Yeah, yeah.
that scene was quite hilarious. I had forgotten about that scene, the Turkish delight scene. I was like, oh, is that how they're trying to say that came about?
Yeah. And then he does all that stuff where he tells Giles he tells Giles and the Bay character about how awesome it's going to be when he takes them out on the road, and then they both get pissed off and kind
Mhm.
of like both of them kind of quit the whole thing. But then it gets even more hilarious after that. Then he goes to talk to John and Annette, and he's like, "Let's go out to dinner." And they go to Cairo, and there's these belly dancers in there, really like sexualized dancing, and something that you wouldn't like. You know, this is probably the first time you've seen this in these films too, where I mean, these things get a little more sexy as you go into the 70s, but this it's not like it's hardcore, like kind of sexualized as you would think, but it's definitely a little exploitive.
Well, yeah, because
And
King Tip's one of them.
yeah, yeah. yeah, he puts it down her pants too.
The scene that you could have done without that little tidbit there, he could have easily just walked out. You have to say he has to say, "Well, if you're ever in show business, yeah, give me a call." And
Well,
then tip. So I can't remember the
yeah,
exact words he says, but something like that.
yeah. I'm trying to remember. He did say something, and he's like,
Yeah,
"Oh, geez, I can't remember it." But it's hilarious. I almost feel like that's an ad lib, but maybe it wasn't. But can you imagine that? But even like the way that they shot it, like the way they shot like a close up of the belly moving, and then they shoot like a really tight shot of one of the other women when you see like all the sequins moving around. It's like it's. I mean, it's a cool scene, and then that's when they're in there, and then they get the call that something happened back at the place, and they go back and it's ransacked. And that's the character Michael Ripper plays. He's the one that's in most of these Hammer films that we've watched so far. He's always plays like a smaller character, and this one he plays an Egyptian servant, and they go back in there, and the place is all destroyed. I guess like with that the Adam Beecham character had come in there at some point and kind of trying to look for something, and they open up a crate and Michael Ripper's character's in there dead.
yeah,
I guess he's supposed to be guarding everything that killed his ass. So
yeah. But it's still a mystery because they don't know exactly. I believe at that point there's nothing taken, or they don't know.
right, yeah, there wasn't anything taken that they could tell, and there wasn't because they had a list of everything, and they're like, we're going to look at the list and make sure nothing's gone. So there's nothing gone.
No, because the inventory list is stolen from the ship. Is it the ship when the ship? Is it just when the thug gets on the ship that he steals the inventory?
I'm not sure if it's a possibility. It's a possibility of
They
that. I did.
mentioned it. I just can't remember what point in the film that the inventory list was gone. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
yeah, yeah. I completely. I mean, I believe it. This film is very. There's a lot of exposition in the dialogue, and there's a lot to follow, even though it's not that complex. It's almost like you don't. It's an odd thing. It's like it's that you don't necessarily care about all those details when you're watching the movie. It's like you want to see the mummy, but there's a lot of details and a lot of stuff going on
Yeah.
between a lot of these characters that it's almost like I had to watch it a second time to kind of get my head around all of it. Because essentially, eventually, all it comes down to a mummy movie eventually. But there's a lot going on in the first like 40 minutes or so before we get into the actual mummy stuff.
I think there. I could be wrong with, this, but I think that the ideal behind this is like the distance itself as much from the first Mummy movie as possible, and craft a story that literally is about a curse, about these people who go into the tomb and steal from the tomb. This is why stuff like all these details, stuff is stolen, specific, and why people do what they do is all these details are wrapped around trying to create a new type of story in which it's not just mummy shows up, mummy kills people. There's kind of like there, you know there's like a reasoning behind everything, and it's only revealed at the very end. And then when you rewatch it, you realize how much was set in motion by Adam Beecham's character that you're not aware of until you realize exactly who he is. Um,
Right, right. Yeah. Yeah, and it's that's what I'm saying. There's some complexities to it that's all in there that it's like with the script that the director wrote, but it is maybe a little too complex. I mean, it makes sense, but there's a lot to follow. And
no,
there's a
yeah,
lot of yeah, there's a lot of things going on that seem like random that are hilarious, like just but they do seem somewhat random. I still don't. I guess we could get into it further. Maybe but what's up with the hands getting cut off all the time because it happens three times. But
I didn't know about that
yeah,
one either.
yeah, I feel like something's missing from the film. Like maybe they didn't weren't able to shoot it or something.
I don't know because I only thought about that when at the very end Beecham's character gets his hand severed, and I'm
Yeah,
thinking there's got to be some. Maybe it's a punishment for stealing, even though they don't. Really, I mean, in theory, I guess they are stealing from a burial ground since they're taking
yeah,
artifacts from there. I don't know because back in the day, when people were caught stealing, they chop off their hands and stuff, so you'd never steal again.
yeah.
I don't
But
know. I
yeah.
honestly don't, but they do that. You're right.
Yeah, but the odd thing, the stealing thing makes sense, but the odd thing about it is the mummy's hand is missing. So I don't. It's almost feel like there should be a reason why the mummy doesn't have a hand, and I was like, did I miss a scene? I mean, which is possible. I might have not seen a scene, but I looked back through it just trying to figure out if there's any explanation about the mummy not having a hand. And this isn't called the mummy's hand; it's called the mummy's tomb. So I don't know.
I don't know. But the only thing for a while there, the only thing that really got me, and we'll go into this a little bit further with everyone, but since we're thinking, at least I'm thinking on this wavelength, is the fact that there are like two stories with the mummy going on at the same time. There's the fact that the mummy is avenging and killing the people who desecrated his tomb, which is the curse of the mummy's tomb. But then the mummy also has another purpose with the Adam Beecham's the Adam character, because at the end the two ideals collide and the mummy has to make a choice on which one to actually follow. And I thought that was interesting because normally the bad guy would be controlling the mummy, but Adam doesn't control the mummy in this movie.
Well, let me. I wrote down some dialogue from the film. Very heavy exposition dialogue. So, let's go through this real quick though. But
Okay.
this happens when they get back to London, and before this happens, when they get to London, there's a bunch of guys in there in this shop. They're setting up the exhibits, and they're really like almost like a theater acting troupe, like a comedy troupe, and they're pretty funny. Did you notice that? It was just like,
The
it's,
workers.
yeah, the workers who work for King there, and it's like all of a sudden it's like they're funny, but it's like it's funny anytime you get anything around King or any guys working with them, it's like they're all just like showbiz people, and they're goof. He actually takes one of the heads of one of the I guess one of
Balloons.
the yeah, he puts it on his head. It's like,
Yeah,
I mean,
I did notice that. I was like,
yeah,
oh, this is weird and
yeah,
odd, and yet it keeps the movie flowing because, in my opinion, I think that because the John character and the Giles character are so dry, that the
yeah,
King character and all these little bits with like workers, with working class people, liven up the film.
yeah.
Because there's even when Adam's on there, he's supposed to be the suave, romantic person who steals Annette from John.
Yeah, and
And
he's acting kind of boring. That's really a boring thing to do. It's really like a dick thing to do, you know? And it's
especially in
and
front of John, he like
yeah, yeah,
not,
yeah. I mean,
yeah,
it's like it's a really boring asshole thing to do, but it's
John,
that
you can stay here as long as you like in my
yeah,
place, but I'm
yeah,
going to steal Annette from you, just so you know.
yeah, yeah. But going into this story. Here's how it all goes down. They got these panels sitting there, and John walks up and he's like, these panels are from the door of the Gilded Shrine to and they depict the major happenings in the life of Ra, which isn't really, it's not Ra, it's Ra Ahim or something like that, or Akim. It's not like the god Ra, it's actually like a different Ra. But he says that, and then he gets called out of the room, conveniently, because that leaves Adam alone with Annette. But then Annette starts telling the story because she knows about the story. And here's some of her dialogue. I might paraphrase some of it. She says there are two twins, Ra and Bay, and their father was Ramsey the Eighth. And she says both were different. Ra became a thinker, searcher for truth and eternal life. Bay, on the other hand, was a sensualist who spent his time seeking pleasures for his body. And then at that point, it cuts back, and then Adam's like, "Oh, is that what that says?" Because we know he's involved with this, and he's like kind of surprised that it's telling the story that he had a different perspective on,
Yeah,
because he was like, "This is telling that's what that shit says, really." Then she continues the story. And I guess I don't. It is kind of funny that it says that much because it is kind of hard. I don't know where she gets it all from. But he says B was jealous of his elder brother's position and popularity and wisdom. He conspired to have Rob branded as a witch, and which caused eventually, because he conspired against him. Bay was a very manipulative person, and he was able to turn the father against him and everyone there, and they all thought he was a witch, so they banished him to the desert, and he was banished to the desert, and that's when he found his followers, like a ancient nomadic people who were followers at the beginning, and you only see them twice in the movie, but they show up, and then that's when it goes into a flashback like it did in the other Mummy, and we see Ra. We don't see Bay in the flashback, and then a tribe. People bring him artifacts and stuff like that. It says the tribe became impressed with him, and they basically made him their king, ruler of them. And at the coronation, and this is the important MacGuffin of the film, they presented him with a small medallion inscribed with the sacred life words used to revive the dead.
Hmm.
And then that's kind of explains the whole plot. But it's really hard to pay attention to when it's going on because it's just a net like, dropping a load of exposition
Yeah,
on the audience.
yeah, but that actually happened several times in the movie where the exposition kind of it just dropped on you, and you're meant to pay attention. But like
Yeah,
you said earlier, it's
yeah.
not one of those things where you're paying attention to while you're watching it because you're waiting for a mummy, you're waiting for the excitement to happen. But they're dropping a lot of exposition that plays into Adam's reveal at the very end.
The problem with it is like with that exposition, you can't show Bay in the flashback, but you can only show Raw. So it makes it so you have to listen to what she's saying and comprehend it and give a shit about it.
Yeah,
And then while that's happening, all it does is it shows a close up of some artifacts around the exhibit, and it's almost like a documentary type of feel as it goes around the exhibit, just showing different artifacts, which is a shot that's shown twice. It's shown in the opening credits as well.
yeah. But yeah, I noticed that too, but I didn't pay attention to it during the opening credits. Did you
You're
pay?
right. Well, I mean, it's just a B-roll really of
It's just B-roll.
artifacts.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, but it's the same B-roll again while she's telling the story because they can't stay on her because it's going to be boring if they do that. And if they show Bay, they can't do that either, so they're going to show artifacts like,
I didn't even think about it that way until you just mentioned it. You're absolutely right.
yeah.
Oh my God. Okay, so this leads, at least, one of the scenes I really like, which is like the opening of the ceremony or the opening of
Yeah, yeah.
the exhibit, and
Yeah.
of course King talking in front of the press and everyone who's been invited there. I'm a little surprised that there wasn't more people there. I could see King being this really successful business guy, and that whole room of press and everything would have been completely filled. There would have been no seats empty, yet there are a ton of seats empty while he's giving off
Yeah.
his little shtick in front of
Oh,
everybody.
yeah, I thought it was like that was kind of like a test run of the whole thing though, I think.
I thought that was his actual opening.
Maybe it was. I don't know, but that's an awesome scene though.
It is
The way he delivers that, then he does this lighting. It kind of goes in a circle around him. Everything else is black. It's so hilarious.
Well,
It's just
it's showman's
yeah,
exhibit. You know, he's got the tight little spotlights on
yeah,
people,
yeah,
and then it's segues as in you're in the real tomb as it goes in through the tomb doors, and you see everything around, and then eventually when you because King's explaining the entire story of everything that happened, and as he comes to an end, we slowly move backwards, back out, and then we're back on the stage again. And
yeah,
what we were just seeing cannot actually be like shown on
yeah,
that
yeah.
stage.
No,
but
it's
but
yeah,
it's so huge.
yeah.
It's like the ideal behind all of it is like huge. It's a showman thing, and I love the way they did that whole sequence.
Yeah, it's a unique way it's shot, and it's also the performance is so. That's the part to me. That's when I really like that character, the Fred Clark character. It was during with Fred Clark, the one Alexander King character that played by Fred Clark. That's when I really like that character at that point.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. I mean, I think that was like one of the best scenes. One of the best scenes for me is that scene there, which is why I couldn't wait to discuss it. I was
yeah,
like, and he's on cloud nine after that whole thing and the party and everything like after that.
yeah.
He's like, this is gonna be great. I'm gonna be filthy rich. We have a huge hit on our hands and all that type of stuff. He's like completely different than the rest of
Yeah.
the characters in the story. They, you know.
But then in that same scene, he tells everybody, he's like, you can leave now. But just so you know, when we open this sarcophagus up, anyone in this room could be like subjected to the mummy's curse. So feel free to leave now. And nobody leaves. And then he opens it, and there's no mummy in there, and
Um,
it's just like it's like wah wah, you know.
when he says that whole shtick about you should leave because everyone's subjected to the curse, I kept wanting him to be like William Castle and give everyone like life insurance policies.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
of course, the big reveal is the mummy's gone. He's not in the tomb, and it is like, ah, shit, you just ruined my whole thing.
Well, I guess one thing we didn't mention before, which is pretty important to that scene, is during one of the earlier scenes, not that early, but a little bit before this, when they're in the when they're setting up, they actually do open the sarcophagus up and see the mummies in there. So he's full of shit. He's saying they're opening it for the first time when they've already opened it. It's so, but I mean, they kind of had to do that. I mean, it's hilarious because he is full of shit, but they had to do that so the audience knows the mummy was there before and now it's gone. And that is when the mummy comes into play because he's been taken from the sarcophagus, he's been resurrected. But there was another scene that ties into what happens with this. It was back when they're in the apartment or whatever the house is that John and Annette are in, and old Adam Beecham's like trying to hit on. Well, he's not really necessarily trying to hit on Annette, but it just kind of happens because that's what he does, kind of. But he's
Yeah,
really trying to find something, which is this medallion that they gave Ra. That's what he's been trying to find the whole time,
yeah,
and she has it. Annette has it in her hand, and then John like finds it and then he takes it from her and he's like, right now, I need to go right now in the middle of the night over to Giles's house. I'm going to leave you here with Adam, even though he comes in and he's already looking suspicious, like, what is going on here? But then he
yeah,
gets he's so like fascinated, like he can't wait till the next day to go talk to Giles about the medallion. And then he goes to Giles, and Giles is in there drunk as shit and knocks over something, and he calls him like a drunken old fool. And then Giles is like, "Well, fuck you, I'm going to bed," you know.
yeah. The first time those two ever got into a real altercation was that calling him out for being a
Yeah,
drunk.
yeah. It's funny how when it happens. I mean, he's like so. I mean, it's two hilarious things happen there. Like he's so obsessed with this that he leaves his girlfriend with this other dude who's clearly trying to. He even when he leaves, he walks out the door. The first thing he does is he walks over to her and starts kissing her on the bottom of her neck. It is like it's like so. I mean, there's so much hilarity going on here, and then the Giles character, like he kicks him out of the room, and obviously all that's just a ploy to get Giles out of the room. So then somebody comes in and knocks him out and steals the medallion, and that's how the mummy's brought back with that medallion.
Yeah, yeah. And John gets knocked out a lot in this movie.
Yeah, 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 for sure. Yeah.
He's not a very effective male figure for Annette.
Yeah,
He doesn't even
he's
save her at the end either.
no, no, no. He really gets shafted in this, but it's his own fault. It's just like he needs to pay more attention to her. It's, it's like, yeah, and he makes a lot of mistakes because if
Yeah,
he'd taken that medallion, I mean, really that medallion though, if he hadn't gone to Giles, like he would have gotten stolen from him that night too. He probably would have got knocked out anyway. But But then that's what's the unfortunate thing that happens, which is also a good scene, but it's also sucks because like after that they find the mummy's not there, Alexander King's leaving, and he's walking down this alley, and there's a prostitute there, and
hmm
she wants it she which this is like a very unique thing for this character because she propositions him. He says no. He starts to walk away, and then he stops and he's like, you know what? Here's some money. Go get a room for the night. And she's like, oh, God bless you, sir, and leaves. So that's one thing about they did for that character. They really gave him a solid there, like giving him that moment right before the mummy shows up for the first time. I'll let you talk about that part.
Yeah, well, it's a really extremely well done because the mummy is standing at the top of this tall staircase outside, and King's got his unique little jacket on from the cold. And the first thing he thinks is someone's pulling his leg because of the fact that the mummy was
Yeah.
just stolen from his display, and so he's not thinking anything of it really. But lo and behold, when the mummy gets close enough to him, he gets and this is he gets strangled, which is because it's him. It's kind of, I like, oh man, I was like,
Yeah.
oh,
Well, he
shit.
throws them down the stairs too, which is a little more extreme, but it's two things. It's a cool set. And there's a lot of fog, and the mummy looks cool. It sucks that Alexander gets killed, or Alexander King gets killed there, but it's not really that graphic. But it is kind of cool that he throws him down the stairs.
It's the most interesting death scene of all the characters that the mummy kills in this movie. Up until the point where he's actually in the very final scene with Adam in the tunnels under the city type thing.
Yeah.
This is the most interesting death scene, the way it's shot and everything like that. More so than Giles's death, which is just moments after this one.
Yeah.
Once the mummy starts, he doesn't really stop.
Yeah. Well, that mummy is going after like everybody who desecrated the tomb. I guess that he kind of has to do that as part of his shtick. But but then when he goes to kill Giles, something cool does. It's Giles's death is pretty gruesome though. Even though it doesn't show anything, it's pretty gruesome because kind of like in the first Mummy when Christopher Lee busts through the door.
Yeah.
This time, instead of having a wood door for the mummy to get hurt on trying to come in, it's like an all glass door with which I assume to be like fake glass, breakaway glass. And he hits the door, breaks all the glass. He comes in. Giles gets out a gun, starts shooting at him, and then of course he doesn't. And this is one thing I was thinking at this point. I'm like, why doesn't anyone ever run from this mummy? This mummy can't go very fast.
No,
But I guess he's drunk and he's got a gun. And he's fired on him, and he's like, well, this ain't working.
well, I always wonder why people do. You have a gun. If you believe it's a real mummy, then why don't you just shoot it in its head? I kind of
Yeah,
wonder if
yeah,
people
yeah.
do that. Like,
They never do that, do they?
never
Yeah,
do that.
yeah.
Hey,
Never shoot him
the
in the head.
closest you're going to get to someone actually killing a mummy the right way would probably be Christian Slater in Tales from the Dark Side, the movie.
He like chops him up with a saw, like a little, like was it that little
Bread cutting saw
yeah,
blade.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, but I don't know if a mummy. Who knows though? I don't know if a mummy getting shot in the head would kill it or not. Maybe it would.
He
It's
would
kind
in
of a
the
zombie.
head.
Yeah, it probably would. Maybe. I don't know. But here's where it gets gruesome though. He picks him up. He slams him on the desk. And then he picks up like a statue of a cat.
Yeah, okay. So
Yeah, it did he like bludgeons him to death with it. He hits him like I think 4 times in the face, which it doesn't show it, but it's like, damn,
you
that's
could
harsh.
imagine
Yeah,
well, that the other death with Hajmi
yeah,
is also very similar. You
yeah,
don't see the actual gruesomeness, but you hear it.
right. With that, in Waxwork, there's a very similar scene to that Hashmi's death, where the mummy steps on his head like that. And in Waxwork, you actually see it, like the mummy like crushes the guy's skull like that. But here, like they either were probably couldn't show it because of censors at the time, but they also maybe didn't want to show it because that's leaving that to your imagination is something to be said for that too.
Yeah, it's the '60s. I don't, other than like anything that Herschel Gordon Lewis may have done, I don't see like these higher prestige horror films being too gruesome yet. Not until like the '70s when you start seeing Last House on the Left and some of that early stuff where it's obviously gruesome. More so. So, oh, I have to think about when this was released.
Yeah, I mean there's a few even the implication of some of the deaths is pretty gruesome, especially like Giles's death and then the guy's hand getting chopped off and him getting stabbed in the chest. There's some, but it's definitely not as graphic as it could be.
Yeah.
So while this is happening, that's when it goes back to Adam and Annette, and that's when he starts making they start making out, and then
Yes.
she decides she's going to go with him and leave Paul, and she's completely fine with all this.
And that's the reason why I wasn't 100% convinced that they were her and John were engaged because I was like, wow, that's just that's just
Yeah,
bold. So it was easier for me to believe that her and John might be a couple or something that's been at the beginning of being in a relationship, but it had
yeah,
not come to fruition yet. Therefore, Adam steps in with his suave performance and just sweeps her off her feet, and enough so that she wants to leave with him. And she wants to tell John at first that in person, but then of course, or is it? Yeah, I think
Yeah. Well, no, she wants to write him a note. She's
she
like,
was wrong.
yeah,
I had to think about that
yeah,
for a second. No, she wants to write him a note, and so
yeah.
Adam tells her to write a note. You go ahead and
I
do it.
don't think, I don't think John really gives a shit really when it comes down to it. He's kind of like, okay, if you're gonna do that, go on. But I don't know. I mean, you could be right. I like that idea better, but I really do think I really do think that she's like his fiance. I think they say it in the film. I know on the Wikipedia page it says it, but um, I'm almost positive they say it in the film a couple of times.
I
But
think, yeah,
yeah, I like it better if she's not though. It makes her character better. But I don't.
it would
Yeah,
seem really bad for her
yeah.
if they're engaged and she just said, "Oh, I'm gonna leave my fiance and just go with this man I've known for only a small amount of time."
There's a lot of yeah, there's a lot of melodrama in this thing with
Oh,
that love triangle. It's kind of and some of those scenes are kind of groan inducing to me. Like some of like the scenes with between like Adam and her and Ned. It's just like it's like man, and I like I kind of like the Adam character. I just don't like that he's playing her so hard like that for so many scenes.
yeah, especially with her his end game use for her to begin with.
Yeah, yeah.
It's not like like she represents the well. And I was a little bit confused about this, which is why I was about to say something that I probably didn't want to say, because I wasn't 100% sure how Adam, who is what's his,
B
huh?
B.
B.
Yeah, B, like Ra's brother
Yeah,
B.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. How she plays into his whole psyche, because of obviously he wants to kill her first and then kill himself because he's been alive forever, and
Yeah.
so they could be together in the afterlife. But I don't remember ever getting a sense that she was like a reincarnation of anybody. It's just
No, no. I don't think she is.
okay, good. I'm
Yeah,
like,
yeah. They usually do that in mummy movies. They don't do
yeah.
it in this one.
It was weird to me.
Yeah,
It's like, okay, so he
yeah.
just wants to kill her and then be with her, maybe?
Well, no, I think yeah. There's some weirdness going on with that part, but there's a scene before that happens where the mummy comes in to kill her,
Yeah.
and then she faints on the stairs, and then it turns around and sees Adam, walks down to him and like slaps him across the face hilariously and knocks him to the ground, and then it goes back to her, and the mummy has a hard time killing her. It's thinking about it, but it's like I don't know if I can do this. And then there's a knock on the door, and the mummy's like, "All right, I'm out," and leaves. And later on, near the end, the mummy has to make a decision again, and that's where the mummy is Ra, and Ra was he's having to. There's two things with the mummy. The mummy's Ra, who was a very charismatic guy who people followed, and unlike the other mummy movies, he was actual like a pharaoh or a prince, and but here the mummy is also cursed for which we don't know why. We don't know why the mummy's cursed or anything. I don't even know if he has to do the mummy's curse, but they gave him the medallion. Like his followers gave him the medallion as a gift, and that's why he was brought back to life. And I guess as part of that, he has to kill his desecrators of his tomb, and I think that that's part of like what the mummy has to do, and that's what I get from it,
Yeah,
even
that's
though
what I
it's
got
not.
too.
Yeah,
That's
but
what I got too. I
yeah,
was like,
yeah.
his whole purpose was to just kill the squares of his tomb, but I didn't know why he just didn't kill Annette.
Well, it does. I think it's explained at the end, uh,
Just-
which I don't know if we may want to wait for. Well, yeah. I guess we should get into the end of it because that's what happens is like the sewer scene.
yeah,
But after like Adam reveals that he's Bay and he's got an evil plan, or I guess it's not necessarily evil. He says he's been alive
for
for
a very long
3,000 years and he wants to die, and he's brought back the mummy.
because
That's another really it's another this is like some crazy exposition.
Because
Like,
Ra is the only one who can release him
yeah,
for his curse.
yeah,
So
the father cursed him, and like he said, his brother is the only one. Like that's such a random thing. His brother, who's dead, is the only one who can release him from the curse.
So I got the impression that Bay was already cursed, and Rod had not died at that point. And so he gets Bay gets a second chance when Rod's resurrected.
He gets a chance. He gets a second chance to die
Yeah,
because I guess he's like that's what he says in the monologue that he does at the end that he's ready to die, and I guess he thinks he's going to kill her and then come back in some way. There's some craziness to everything that's not quite on the level there, and it's not really making a lot of sense. But
yeah. So I
it's
think they wanted to be together, and he wanted to be with her in the afterworld.
yeah, 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 yeah. And I guess it's like a religious thing with that the pharaohs that I guess he's been living for 3,000 years. He's tired of the earth. He's ready to go into the afterworld, which is going to be a better place. I would assume it's similar to heaven is what it's going to be, something to that nature. But he's ready to do it, and he's going to take her with him, and he wants the mummy Ra to kill him to kill her, and then Rod goes to kill her, and then he can't do it.
Yeah.
And then Beecham says, "Oh, you're always like that with the women. You can't, you can't always a pretty face or whatever." And then the mummy kills Bay. He chops his hand off before that, but
Yes.
then he kill. He must have gotten his hand chopped. I don't. There may be some dialogue in here that explains that hand thing, but I don't know. But then Bay's killed, and then the mummy walks away from her, and then the ceiling of the sewer system wherever they're at like falls on top of the mummy, and I guess it kills the mummy. And then as the mummy's dying, he holds up the medallion like the other mummy held up the scroll and goes under the water again.
So that no one can resurrect him again. Like
Yeah, yeah,
he can finally be in eternal peace in a
yeah,
sewer buried underneath rubble.
yeah. But the problem is, like, unlike the scroll, the scroll gets wet, it's destroyed. This is a medallion that's not going to get really destroyed by the water. So,
Now it's a very cool sequence when they get into those tunnels there.
yeah,
Don't get me wrong. I mean, I love that whole tunnel sequence. It's a very interesting set piece. But at that point in the story, John has become completely useless, which is
yeah,
quite funny because after all of that, and that's left by herself in these tunnels, and you hear John,
yeah, yeah,
I found the way in, and he drops a rope down, and the movie ends. And I'm
yeah,
like, wow, that's how you ended? Like
yeah.
these two don't get together. She's completely destroyed because she was about
I,
to leave John for this guy
yeah.
who happens to be a 3,000-year-old Egyptian.
It's
So
I don't yeah, I hope they don't get back together after that after she did that shit. I mean, I think that John's like kind of done with it though. He's just kind of like he comes in and then they're like he even says she's leaving him and he's just kind of like don't care hardly. He's just not really that concerned about it.
odd. It's so odd
It
though.
it is. I mean, and then it's like it's it's not what you would expect, but it is. I mean, if you think about these characters and him being obsessed with his research and not necessarily even caring that much about her, it's like he that resonates. Even though, like, as a hero of a movie, that doesn't resonate. That's not the hero that we're expecting,
No.
but it's the hero that we're given, who's not really a hero. He's just an obsessive
Bookworm.
um, yeah, yeah. So he's a bookworm, yeah, but he doesn't appear that way just because of the way the actor looks and,
Yeah.
things of that nature. But she, on the other hand, I think her performance she's very excited the whole film. Anything that happens, and she goes from one thing of excitement to another, and it's like she's looking for the next high throughout the film. Anything that happens, she's just like very happy, very excited about it. And it's just like she just needs that dopamine kick, no matter what it is. I mean, she does. It's like a crack for her, and she just goes from one thing to the next, and until the end of the film, when when he tries to kill her, that's the first time you see her like concerned about anything. I guess her father dying and screaming about the hand was a little
Yeah,
bit of that,
yeah.
but for the most part, even after that, I mean, I don't know how long it was between her father dying and then King showing up, but she was okay. By the time King got there, she was back in her good mood again.
Oh yeah.
Um, it, but when she's in the sewer with the mummy, it's pretty good acting there, her performance for that sequence, and her just this fear and just being put through the ringer in that, and in that sewer system that she's in.
Yeah, yeah. And the thing is, I really enjoyed the film, except for the fact that John, for me, was just this lackluster book geek who just
Yeah.
couldn't get his shit together because he got knocked out so damn many times and he couldn't even save his girl at the very end. So I'm a little disappointed by the time by the time I get to the end of the movie, I'm always like, damn it, John,
I
you.
mean, yeah. To me, I think that's another thing in the script that I think that this director, that was, to me, that was like him thinking that was hilarious, and I think it's hilarious because it's like you don't expect that, you think that it's like a Big Lebowski character, like Big Lebowski's supposed to be the hero, but he's really not. He's just like a friggin' stoner, and like
Except for the actor in this film doesn't have the same charisma as
yeah,
what's
Jeff Bridges, yeah.
yeah, Jeff Bridges.
But I think to me that does seem like almost I don't know if it's really supposed to be a joke, but I do feel like the way that it's written is the director was intentionally trying to avoid cliches and trying to subvert expectations of the way you think the characters are going to behave and what they're going to do.
Hmm.
Because if you think about anything that any character does throughout the film, it's like not, it pisses you off because you're like, they're not supposed to do that. But then if you think about it, it's like they did that because they're not supposed to do that. Saying that's not how they're supposed to behave.
That's interesting. It's an interesting.
Yeah.
I didn't think about it that way.
Yeah, but it's annoying though at the same time because it's like they're not supposed to behave like that. And it's
Oh, yeah, and the fact that the mummy shows up so late in the movie to begin with, and there's so much exposition and so much other stuff in the film.
yeah,
Yeah, I can see that actually. I can see him trying to subvert expectations on a mummy movie. I don't know how many mummy movies had been produced before this one, but in between the Universal Studios, this one, and other studios, and they were maybe he just wanted to do something completely different that hadn't been done before.
yeah. But there was a lot of Universal Mummy movies. I think there was there five. There's five Universal Mummy movies.
Two, four. I think there's five.
It, yeah, there's five of them, and then there's one Mummy movie before this one. So that's a pretty good bit of Mummy movies. And this is when 1964.
Six, four.
Yeah, so I mean, there may have been some others. I mean, I'm sure there were some others, but those were like the big ones. And even that, like six Mummy movies, that's a pretty good bit before this. And so there's, and then I just feel like he was trying to do something different. And at the same time, he was trying to probably this is just guessing because I haven't heard any commentaries or anything, but he's probably trying to make it for cheaper by focusing on characters and not the mummy as much, and so until you get closer to the end.
Mm,
But there are some pretty big set stuff in there. But I feel like a lot of it is recycled from the other mummy movie, like a lot of the props and things like that.
yeah.
Like the sarcophagus, it probably is from the other mummy movie, and then the brandy decanter is probably from the other mummy movie and the Revenge of Frankenstein. But
Well, I wanted to. We were talking about mummy movies, and I wanted to remember how many of the Aztec mummy movies there were, and the Aztec movie series was ended probably 6 years before this one was released. So that was a three
uh,
film franchise as well. But around the Universal Studios, kind of like Universal Studios mummies first, and the Aztec mummy series came, and then these started to
yeah,
come out. So there's
I never heard of the Aztec
oh, you
mummies.
haven't seen those?
No, what's up with that?
Those are so much fun.
Are they?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I had to remember those because I've seen those several times. Those are so much fun. We talk about upgrade versions of movies. I don't think they've ever done a really great pristine copy of these movies.
So
Um,
who made the Aztec ones?
I don't remember. I used to have a box
Was
set of them.
I mean,
So
was it like U.S. or was it another
no,
country?
no, 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 no. I don't think it's U.S. I couldn't even tell you. I think it's a Mexican production.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, if it's Aztecs.
Um, yeah, yeah, but it was their
Yeah,
version of the
I'm
movie,
looking it up. It's a Mexican, the Aztec Mummy, 1957.
and
The
there's
Aztec
three of them.
Mummy.
There's
Yeah,
three of them. Yeah,
this is the robot versus
yeah.
the Aztec Mummy.
They're so much fun, man.
Shit. Yeah,
I'm a big fan of the early Mexican cinema, the
yeah.
Santos films, and the wrestling.
Oh
Uh,
yeah, yeah,
yeah, dude, those movies are so much fun. And the Mummy movies are actually great. For me, of all the Mummy movies, this one's probably more one of the ones you have to think more about, because there's so much story to it. I think you miss a lot if you just take it for granted. Like it's not like watching the horror of Dracula. You can watch the horror of Dracula, and it's pretty freaking entertaining just to watch these actors chew scenery. But for this, and there's not like a great bit of explanation or exposition in that movie. But
yeah.
this one, there is a ton of it.
Right. And I mean, it's kind of bad too in a way because it kind of like, I mean, really, like, not, I never, like, with that flashback part and her doing that big monologue, I never really paid attention to it.
Hmm.
And then, like, at the end of it, he reveals that he is Bay, that it's like, who? What? What? Obviously he's a bad guy. I get that, but
Yeah, you just
it's like, but
That's how you figure out all the details in his character is through having listened to all that exposition that came before. And
yeah,
that's the thing is, if you're not paying attention to any of that,
yeah,
what happens in the third act of this movie is like, what? Whoa, whoa, what the hell? What?
yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, it's fine though. I mean, it kind of like I understood that he was a bad guy and he was like, out the. I mean, but I think watching it, the assumption is that he's just got resurrected the mummy because he's like in line with with people like Bay, who were Egyptians, but that's not the case really.
No,
When I say Bay, I mean like
Ardeth Bay.
Ardith Bay, or he's not really Ardith Bay. What is his name? Hasmi Bay in this one,
Oh yeah,
but Ardith Bay is like the name that
Boris Karloff.
Boris Karloff goes by. But yeah, but yeah, Hasmi Bay. You think he's in line with that Bay, but he's not. He's actually like the brother of this prince who is the mummy,
Yeah.
and they didn't get along very good.
Uh,
But I don't know, man. I think because of that, it's a little weak because it's got too much exposition and it's told in a shoving it down your throat kind of way. It's not told in a way that isn't anything but like here's the information, take it now, or you're not going to understand the twist at the end of the film, you know?
and that's kind of the nature of some of these movies. They're trying to have these big twists at the end. More modern day films than films back there in the '60s. Because I haven't seen enough of these films from the '60s to know if there was a trend like this or not. And I haven't read anything that tells me that there was like a trend of having these type of endings where the audience's expectations are subverted by these big reveals. Unless, of course,
Yeah.
you're watching a freaking Sherlock Holmes
Yeah.
adaptation.
Right, right, yeah. But
you know so I've always liked certain aspects of this film, but I've never, like, until now when we watched the film for this critique and analysis. I didn't pay as much attention, like you said, to all the nuances and the stories that are being told beforehand in order to link them all up with the ending of the film. I paid a lot more attention this time, but that's only because I've already seen the movie several times.
right, yeah. I think like once the mummy comes into play in this movie, it becomes kind of more of a standard mummy movie for a little while.
Yeah.
But there's a lot going on before that and after that is that's different than the other mummy movies. But really, that's a pretty good mummy in this one. It's not as good as the Lee one, but it's got a pretty good bit of screen time, and it looks pretty cool.
Yeah, and once he starts killing, he don't stop.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah,
The payoff is much better than you would think because you're watching the film. You're like, you may be waiting for the money, waiting for the mummy, waiting for the money, but it's not like watching the old mummy movies post the Boris Karloff first mummy, where the mummy just lumbers really slowly, and you're wondering why people haven't just ran past the damn thing. Um, when the mummy shows up in this film, he's busting through freaking doors and stuff, and he's immediately going for his prey. You know,
Yeah. Yeah, and he gets them too. And but we're kind of like I said before, we're denied the tomb, all that, but at the same time, we've seen it a lot of other films. So I guess they figured we didn't need to see it again. And we also don't know who all desecrated the tomb. We know John was one of them, and he doesn't get killed. The mummy doesn't like to kill more than one person at a time, apparently, because he does have an opportunity to kill John, but he kills the Hamid or Hashmi Bey character
yeah.
instead.
Oh, that's right. He just kills Hashmi Bey, and then that's it. Oh, that's right.
Oh, that's something we didn't talk about too. Oh, yeah. Oh, this is another hilarious scene.
Oh, the scene where
So,
the police try to capture the
yeah,
mummy.
yeah, yeah. It's like some Scooby-Doo shit. So,
How
so
do we skip over that scene,
I
dude?
don't know. Yeah, but
It's a
yeah,
whole
yeah.
elaborate ruse.
Yeah, because yeah, he's talking to Hashmi Bey like John is, and they're putting up this big thing about those guys, and the mummy comes in to get them, and suddenly they drop a net on the mummy. The mummy's like can't get out of the net, and then that's when we kind of talked about it a little bit. We just didn't talk about the net. That's when Hashmi Bey does the getting down on his knees and telling him that he
Yes,
wants to
that's all.
sacrifice and all that. But we
Yeah, that's
talked
all.
about that
Yeah,
part of the scene. Yeah,
yeah. So the police, the inspector, and the police have all elaborately constructed this whole. We're going to catch the mummy in the net, and they capture the mummy in the net.
yeah,
But Hashmi Bey says something, and all of a sudden the mummy breaks out of the net with his
yeah,
super strength.
yeah,
With his super strength, despite the
yeah,
fact he's dead and decaying slowly, and he goes to Hashmi Bey, who sacrifices himself for everyone,
yeah.
and the mummy crushes his head. And the police and everyone's just watching this. They're not doing
Yeah.
nothing. And the
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you think they'd be pulling out some guns or something, but then it's probably like, what is it? Like, there's some place, I think it's maybe Britain or something, where they're not allowed to have guns. They could just like have batons, you know. But it's and then the mummy leaves, and then they're like, yeah, put a blanket over him just to cover him up.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Uh, I can't believe we skipped over that whole sequence. It's so
yeah,
funny. But
yeah,
yeah, the idea that these cops are just gonna let the mummy walk out, I was like, oh, okay, that's interesting.
yeah, yeah. But yeah, that's freaking so funny when they
But
drop
it's so
that
rare.
net. What now?
It's rare. That's where,
Yeah.
like we were talking about, where it kind of plays with audience's expectations. We never see a scene where the cops are actually trying to be effective with mummies.
Yeah, right.
They don't know about the mummy until the end, and they don't believe in the mummy until the end, and it's too late. This time, they actually do something about it. They capture the mummy, and then
Yeah.
they do nothing after he kills somebody. They just watch him kill.
Yeah, yeah. At that point, they're like, okay, that was a little much. I guess we're just gonna like let that mummy do its thing, you know?
Oh Jesus! All right, so is there anything else that we have forgotten to talk about since we went back to talk about that
We
sequence?
probably have. But I think we talked about enough of the movie, though. I'm sure we missed something.
It's one of those type of films, everyone, where it's a mummy movie, and it's the way the Hammer would do a mummy movie, which is not always exactly how others would do it. Now, we all know that the original The Mummy movie with Christopher Lee and Peter Cushing was kind of modeled after the original Universal Studios version, but this one was trying to create something that's all its own, separate from that, and it does that by crafting a different type of story, but it almost feels like it's trying to reinvent the entire wheel at certain times. And so that's why I feel like first half is a whole lot of explanation and exposition until we get to what we typically would see in a mummy movie until the very end where the big reveal that we weren't expecting with the Adam character. So
Well, I don't know if we weren't expecting that. I think the
oh
second that guy showed up on screen, something's up with this guy, you know?
yeah, we're expecting something's up with this guy, but we're not expecting the whole family feud thing.
Yeah, yeah.
And he wants to die. Like most people in the movies are not wanting someone else to kill them. I've been alive too long. I need someone to kill me.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
All right. So, any other words that we have for this, Dave, from your perspective?
No, that's all I got right now. Yeah.
All right. So, for everyone listening, what we like to do at the end of our little conversation is we like to rate the movies between 1 and 5 stars. 1 being poor, 5 stars being amazing. Where on the spectrum, Dave, do you place the Curse of the Mummies to?
So I'm going to give this three mummy, not mummy hands, like severed hands out of five. So it's a list lower than any of the other hammers I've rated. I do like this movie in a way. I like the camp value. It's got a lot of hilarity to it, and it's good in a bad way. And there are some, like we talked about, there are some really. I do like the way that they handle the characters differently than you would expect them, but there's way too much explanation about stuff. The mummy scenes are great, but there's too much explanation. And I do like the comedy aspect, even though it adds to the camp value. And I do like any of the things that kind of make it different. But that is just way too much explanation shoved down your throat in too many places.
Hmm. I would go give it 3 stars too for a very similar reason. I believe that for me, some of the dynamic and some of the most interesting things stop when the Alexander King character is killed.
Yeah,
He's my favorite character in the film, and then after that, it seems to be that we pull our attention to the mummy, and none of the rest of the characters are nearly as interesting as King. So therefore, I mean, Adam, Annette, John, they're just not that exciting or interesting as characters as King. If they had flip flopped it and made King one of like the last people to be killed, that would have been much more interesting for me. But like they go after Giles first. Like he's a drunk. Go after fucking Giles first.
it's yeah, but I don't know. But the thing is, like, I guess the audience they're there for the mummy. So the mummy does deliver, and the mummy doesn't deliver until it kills King. And so it kind of takes like what everyone's enjoying before that, and then it gives them what they wanted to begin with, which is
Yeah,
the mummy killing people.
and the deaths are violent. I mean, they may be off screen, but they are violent. They're not like what we got used to is a lot of just people getting strangled and falling over dead.
Yeah, yeah.
We get people bludgeoned to death and their heads stomped on in this movie, and severed hands. So the violence in this is much more. It's not as graphic, but it's much more deliberate in this film as opposed to some of the other movies. And for our '60s, '70s audience, Hammer audiences, they're wanting that since we're not getting any, not as much sexual appeal as of yet. We did hit
Right.
upon it in the belly dance sequence. That's probably about the strongest that we're going to see, and maybe even in the prostitute scene where it's like hinted at, but we haven't seen it. What like
A prostitute was pretty well clothed, though. She had like a
yeah,
huge jacket on.
but the
So,
idea,
yeah,
but having the prostitute in the film to begin with, you know,
yeah, that's true. Yeah, it would have definitely wouldn't have passed code a few years before this. I think the code was starting to really like
loosen up, yeah.
loosen up because they got some stuff in there that they wouldn't have been able to.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. So that's why I put it where I put it there.
Yeah, I think something that we didn't mention too, even with the belly dancing, it's kind of done in a sexual way, which is like plays into stereotypes and there's also like a lot of like clearly European actors playing Middle Eastern descent actors with like makeup on. So I mean, I don't know. That's kind of just that was fine for the time, and
That's all you can say right there.
I don't. Yeah, I mean, I don't. I mean, we can't. I mean, I don't think we can necessarily judge it. I don't. I don't really. I don't. It doesn't bother me, but I think that if they were to try to do that now, it wouldn't fly at all. But like if you look at the movies from this era, there may be some in there, but they just probably couldn't find them at the time. There wasn't like people like who were trained actors or who were Middle Eastern descent who were or even available to be in anything.
Yeah, and these weren't high budget films even for the time that they were being made, and they were in the UK. So I guarantee you probably just couldn't find the actors back then. And
Yeah.
at least that's what I'm hoping.
Yeah. Right. And
That's what I'm hoping.
yeah.
I want to thank you, Dave, for joining us on this conversation about The Curse of the Mummy's Tomb. Everyone out there, I hope you've enjoyed our little conversation and our little bit of tangents here and there. We hope that you enjoyed listening to us talk about this movie and about all the other stuff that we enjoy about Hammer Studio films and projects. So, with that, I want to thank you all for joining us for today's episode. Make sure to check out previous episodes in our Hammer Studio Horrors lineup. And don't forget to check out episodes of our regular program, Conversations in Horror, which is available on all your favorite podcast apps, Spotify, and YouTube. Don't forget to pick up our Patreon exclusive podcast, Conversations in Four Colors, which delves deep into comic books, manga, and graphic novels. That is on our Patreon page, so you do have to be a subscriber or follower to listen to that one, but make sure that you do because you will enjoy that one as well. Thank you so much for joining us, and we will see you on the next episode of Conversations in Hammer Studio Horrors. Good day.
Conversations in Hammer Studio Horrors is a Broken Lighthouse Pictures and Something Wicked Entertainment podcast. It is hosted by Kevin L. Powers, original music provided by Dusty Ellison, produced and directed by Kevin L. Powers. Our executive producer is Kelly A. Inoka. This podcast is produced in Gwinnett County, Georgia. Conversations in Hammer Studio Horrors is part of the Conversations in Horror podcast franchise and is copyright 2025 Broken Lighthouse Pictures. No part of this program can be used without express permission from Broken Lighthouse Pictures.